Dear friends, welcome to the channel The Eastern Front. Today we have an unusual and interesting topic. It's unique in that it consists of the memories of non-commissioned officer Heinrich Rechfeld, commander of the mortar platoon of the 8th Company, 2nd Battalion of the Panzer-Fusilier Regiment, Grossdeutschland Division, which describes all the horrors and the collapse of the German army in the East Prussia, as well as another participant in the battles at the Baltic, who later became the President of the Federal Republic of Germany. Unfortunately, he didn't leave any diaries and notes about his wartime. The last positions on the coastal ledges of the Balga Peninsula near the village of Kalholz. Communication units, hospitals and headquarters seek refuge in a 15-meter cliff from a Soviet artillery. This is how the triumphal procession of conquerors who decided to expand their living space at the expense of millions of other people's lives came to an end. And now they are squeezing into holes and shuddering from every raid of Soviet aviation and artillery strikes in a hurried retreat. Broken groups of German troops. The Wehrmacht lost one of the most combat-ready armies in the Heiligenball cauldron, the remnants of which were transferred to the Frisches Nahrungsspit and to the Pillau. From the nose of non-commissioned officer Rechfeld, with our pistols and carbines as well as our assault rifle, we are in reserve in case of a counterattack. The commander of the infantry unit should be on our left about 100 meters. However, he may have been wounded, as the signalman I sent there to establish contacts returned to me only with a map that he found on the spot. I handed over to the battalion commander. As long as Pershkin is still in our hands, and there the Russians are most likely to go on the attack. And so it happens. First, the enemy occupies the edge of the forest, having previously processed it with a mortar fire, so that fragments fly literally at our ears. The tree uprooters behave especially ugly. This is the name of the shells with a particularly sensitive fuse. Every time they carry the fire further and further into the depth of the forest. Then there are screams of "Ura! Ura!" from advancing Ivans. They are already near one of the trenches. However, they are not yet visible directly in front of us. But soon we already notice how the left and right of us they penetrate into the forest. It's hard for us to defend here. Our artillery is firing at the Russians from the forest, but we feel danger from the both flanks. While we are tensely looking for a way out, the disgusting scream of the rampaging enemy are heard from the both sides of the forest. Then tanks fired at our position in the forest, and fragments of mortar mines literally move to the grass. It looks like the end of the world. I send soldiers to take food to the dugout. One of the soldiers has an assault rifle. I take my submachine gun. In the trenches we're waiting for the shelling. The enemy suddenly ceases fire and there is a silence. I can't believe my eyes. The soldiers came out of the trenches and dugouts. However, at 100 meters in front of us, a wild screams of "Ura!" is heard and the Ivans are coming at us. My signalman curses everything in the world, putting a triangular bayonet on his rifle. The rest of the mortars hid behind the first shelters they came across and fired at the enemy. Nearly half of my people have no weapons other than pistols, which can shoot long distances. My signalman fires his assault rifle. I take cover behind a thick tree and shoot accurately at the very first enemies. Our fire is forcing the Russians to throw their noses into the mud. They remain lying, and this is already a great success for us. We were already hoping that the attack was repulsed, when suddenly mines whistled past us, and then shrapnel crackled through the trees. We didn't even hear the mortar shots that opened fire. I look around for cover. Twice fragments flew near me, and it seemed to me as if someone was hitting my legs. Then I felt a burning sensation in both legs. The right leg was paralyzed starting at the knee. At first I felt no pain at all, completely absorbed in the ongoing battle. It was only now that I realized that I was wounded. Seeking help, I looked around. I see how our commander nods to the soldiers and disappears into the forest. People are in the back. I want to crawl deeper into the forest, but my legs finally fail. I helplessly look ahead. The Russians are returning. They are already 50 meters away from me. And I can't even move. Damn. I raise my submachine gun and insert a new magazine. Since all the bullets have already been used up, I shoot at the approaching Ivans, gasping for air with difficulty. Then two of my mortar men suddenly appear and ask, "What's wrong, Mr. Non-Commissioned Officer? We have to pick you up." 18 March 1945. Finally we arrived at the place Volita. Meanwhile it was already quite light. Cold, all frozen, I trudge like other wounded Kiwi with an orderly to the Divisional Medical Center. It's located in one of the peasant houses. Here they lie or sit, leaning on crutches, seriously wounded. 3/4 already dead. In the house all the rooms are completely filled with these poor guys. Some groan weakly, but most lie quietly with their eyes closed. And again I was lucky. 2 soldiers carry me to the door of the dressing room and leave me there. I would probably have to wait half a day for my turn to come. In such situations, the black and silver sleeve patch that distinguishes Grossdeutschland certainly has an advantage. So I only waited 1 hour. Poor Germany. While I'm lying here on the table, the bombs of the Il-2 pilots are thundering outside. Nearby, small caliber bombs explode. Then the hiss of launch rockets is heard. And last of all, the hammers of the onboard guns and the crackle of machine guns continue to knock for several minutes. Then all soldiers who can still run rush to cover. 2 orderlies lift me onto a stretcher and we set off. As soon as we appear between the houses, the Russian shell, like a host, falls exactly on us and crashes into the ground, but doesn't burst. This is the so-called random projectile, as it's called, but it may well still jerk, injure with an accidental hit or even kill. Out of fear, both orderlies abandon me and run for cover. They hesitate to come here again. I don't want to die at all, and the feeling of fear doesn't leave me. Finally, my heroes still appear and are quickly dragged to the next house. Outside the window you can hear some screams, stomping of feet and running around. It looks like something is going on. Harness the horses, load the cars. So what happened? I get up and look out the window. I see how some soldiers with false patron run towards machine guns and mortars. An anti-aircraft gun on a self-propelled carriage approaches the houses. Artillery bombardments begin. Fear gripped me again. Are we going to be left here so easily? The door opens, the orderly comes in, goes from one to the other, shakes them, no reaction. He listens to the pulse. Dead is everywhere. I am the only one still alive here. The orderly takes soldiers' books from the pockets of the dead and opens the capsules with a personal mark. Then he checked for what's left in the bags. The orderly asks if I need something. At first this jars me, but then I agree because I don't know if I will get anything from food or smoke in the future. I ask him what did it mean out there, this restlessness. He replies that the Divisional Medical Center should be moved, since the enemy apparently broke through the front somewhere ahead. Then he quickly exits. The poor guys who are lying here are tankers who survived heavy battles, whose tank were hit and burned down. Now I have only one thought: how would I not be forgotten here? With all my strength I crawl to the door and see how the orderlies are preparing for the departure. A large number of the wounded are being loaded onto the horse transport vehicles. but no one comes up to me. I yell through the doorway and brandish my submachine gun menacingly. Then two orderlies still approach me and carry me to one of the cars. The doctor stays. He decided to hand over the non-transportable wounded to the Russians as a last resort. Worst of all, the Il-2 pilots won't leave us alone. They circle around freely, dropping bombs and rockets, firing machine guns at trucks, horses and soldiers. The once proud fighting German military aviation cannot oppose them with anything. On the embankment, anti-aircraft gun does everything it can, but now it's forced to defend itself. Smoke and fumes from burning trucks are carried through the streets. The soldiers are fleeing from the attacks of the pilots in the fields. If the planes fly up to our column, then all the soldiers and the wounded who can still run jump from the trucks and run away from them, hiding in the street ditches or in the trenches. We, the rest of the wounded, lying in the backs of cars, doomedly look at the aircraft in the air. 19 March 1945. We are lying frozen in the back of a truck. A terrible question arises. What will happen to us now? Finally, the lagging column approaches. I get out of the truck with the several wounded, and we drive through the Balga to the old Ordensburg. We stay in the old church there. Here they removed all the benches and laid straw on the floor. Numerous wounded lie side by side on it. My God, what a disaster! I look around, but I don't see anyone I know. I lie with my eyes closed for several hours. Then I feel very hungry. From the tablet I pull out a jar, butter and a piece of bread. I am so hungry that bread looks like a sweet cake to me. Then I turn my head to the altar, which is illuminated by the penetrating sunlight. On it's an icon of the Mother of God with the child. Crowds of angels surround them. We have never been as close to heaven as we are here. I was so delighted with this picture that I took out my camera from the case and took a photo of this beautiful picture. Unfortunately, I never saw this photo. I buried the film in my uncle's garden in Schwerin with other things before escaping on 1st May 1945 from the military hospital where Gadebusch, Rogendorf, Lausanne from the Russians. Finally, an orderly comes with the two crutches and I am able to get up. As soon as I walk a few meters from the church and stop behind a large stone tombstone, Russian artillery thundered from the direction of Balga. Black clouds of smoke indicated where the shells had exploded. I somehow crawled back to the church. The next fragments are already cracking in the cemetery. I have the impression that the Ivans choose this church as their target for shooting, but I feel at ease in it. I lay down, pressed against the thick stone wall next to the door. I involuntarily thought, my God, how can you allow such a thing to happen here? Before my eyes there are the small children freezing on the sides of the roads, the wounded lying here in the general, everyone who is now experiences distress and need. My God, have you abandoned us? But God is silent. Suddenly a horse-drawn cart pulls up. The heavy driver jumps off and looks for someone. Then he sees me with the Grossdeutschland patch on my sleeve and notes. Convinced that I'm wounded, he comes up to me and I learn that he has been sent to transport the wounded from the Grossdeutschland from here to Rosenberg. There is a small harbor where the ships carry the wounded to Pillau. Happy, I sit there and feel the pain again. And then I hear again the familiar grumbling in the air. I see a low-flying attack aircraft Il-2 with the red stars on the barren surfaces. I even see a pilot in the cockpit, and immediately there are explosions of bombs, the sound of onboard guns like a hammer on an anvil, and the hiss of the rockets. Heavy carefully watches the planes and tries to drive in such a way that the wagon is not visible from the air. I see a dugout bunker and recognize the Red Cross flag above it. A medical officer comes up to us and asks where we are going. Upon learning that in Rosenberg, he asked to take with him a seriously wounded soldier with a gunshot wound to the stomach. 3 fighters bring a half-dead man and carefully place him behind on the wagon. My last bastion is the back of the heavy, protecting me from the shrapnel. From time to time the sky clears, but then the planes reappear and the bombs rumble. I frantically scan the sky, and I see an American Boston bomber heading towards the Rosenberg, dropping bombs on the city. The blast wave even reaches us. Everything rumbles and rumbles as bombs explode and black mushroom clouds rise into the air. Now Russian planes are coming in and dropping bombs on Volga. Both horses, in my opinion, are deaf, as they don't react either to explosions raging around. On the water of the bay I see only a few boats, and the pilots are also firing at them. I look around and the heavy turns its head after me. A whole echelon of enemy planes is heading towards us, which are going to bomb Rosenberg, and of course they noticed us. My God, what will happen now? Airplanes flying over the beach and the shore we are driving on. Here we have no shelter, and I can already hear the onboard cannons and machine guns firing at us. Their roar drowns out even the hiss of the rockets. Small clouds of anti-aircraft bursts dissolve in the sky under the fuselage of aircraft. We arrived at Vollendorf, a town halfway between Volga and Rosenberg. On the walls of houses, the side of trucks and other free planes, the slogan painted in the white paint catches the eye: courage and fidelity. I have time to think. I think that the German soldiers here in the East Prussia and in its cities fought in fact only on the basis of the desire to save the large East Prussian population, to give them the opportunity to escape from the Soviet soldiers thirsty for revenge. And the damn pilots are coming again. With onboard weapons they decided perhaps to destroy our wagon, as fragments are pouring around it and small bombs are exploding. Disgusting feeling. I bend down, turn up the collar of my uniform. Since the Il-2 plane usually come from behind, from the Vollendorf, I always feel like I'm going to be shot in the back, especially since I'm sitting next to the coachman without any cover. Everything crackles and whistles around me. Shrapnel banging on the wagon, on which lies the poor guy with a gunshot wound to the stomach. I was sure that he was wounded again or already killed, but when the pilots flew away I looked at the wagon and, to my surprise, I was convinced that he was still alive. But I can't forget the terrible picture. The bombs fell directly on a group of 6 or 8 soldiers. Now they lie bloody, mutilated with torn-off body parts and broken heads. It's truly scary, and everywhere among the dead are scattered small pits of small-caliber bombs, which the pilots dropped. After we passed there, I smelled of blood all over. These pictures of destruction will never be erased from my memory. Here, the remnant of the Fourth Army is surrounded in the tightest space, with its back resting on the sea, brave and faithful. We shouldn't stay here. Now we already see the target, the Rosenberg. This is the only one place where the bay goes far to the coast. I don't see any ships or similar or people. Fountains of explosions rise up around the wharf, disappearing high into the sunlight. The Katyusha rocket launcher begins to roar, but all the rockets land on the beach and on the water near the embankment. Fountains of water rise high to the sky, but they don't cause significant damage. There are many overturned, half-sunken boats floating in the water. The salvage berth for boarding steamships moved away from the embankment by about 1.5 kilometers. When looking at the wharf at Rosenberg, I see several small motor and rowboats and ferries. The bay here wedged into the harbor in a semicircle. Again and again the fountains of bubbling foam rise high from the water. My God, if only I could get to the ship. A terrible fear seizes me again, perhaps stronger than I have ever experienced anywhere. From the steep slope of Hill 21, several soldiers are shouting to us, "You are idiot! Get out of here! With your cart quickly! You are causing the fire on yourself! The Russians are about to be here! Leave quickly!" I push the heavy in the back. Forward, come on. Then the lighting of the rapture flashes right in front of us. Dirt, dust, fumes, fragments. We drive horses. My heavy sits deathly pale next to me. I'm in the same terrible state as he is. Heavy holds onto the reins with one hand, in other he has a whip. I tear him out of his hands and shout at the poor horses, so that the enemy can hear me. And I willed the whip with noise. Pilots flew somehow lazily, but boldly enough. They bombed the artillery emplacements on the seashore. At the same time, I hear the thunder of anti-aircraft guns. But the stubborn flyers continue to fire from aircraft cannons. Being protected from below by armor, they descend to ground itself. Nobody can bring them down. Finally, the hammers of the onboard guns fall silent, and no more rocket hiss. Planes plowed all over Rosenberg. Everything here looks terrible. Huge bomb craters appeared on the street, along with the burning of ruins. We suddenly stop at a crossroad near a gendarme concrete bunker, and recognize the military police by the tin sign that hangs on a chain around his neck. Their job is to enforce order everywhere. However, the local gendarme is afraid to even stick his head out of the bunker. We stop to find out how to get to the pier. I ask the gendarme, trying to shout over the roar of the onboard gun, where is the shortest way to board the ship? The gendarme explains how to get there and immediately hides in his bunker. I am sitting on the dock with my long leg wrapped in the bandages. Soldiers from the division German Goering appear, who are waiting here for the steamer. All of them are provided with the necessary documents. All have some kind of a special education, or they are tankers without tanks. They think the ship will arrive soon. As soon as the shell explodes on the pier, everyone quickly disappears behind the embankment's parapet. Individual wounded arrive from the Rosenberg. Some limp or even crawl. Finally, I see a small ship approaching the embankment, swinging on a high coastal wave, and almost runs into the pier. Several sailors quickly jump down, whip the mooring rope onto the bollard and then shout, "Quickly, quickly, to the ship!" The sailors help me up on the deck. All the wounded who manage to get to the pier are also brought to the ship. Then they give the mooring lines. The motors are starting to run at a full power. The ship shudders. Describing a long arc, the ship moves away from the harbor at a high speed. As fast as possible for this type of vessel, the ship moves away from the coast towards Pillau. Now I can already see the harbor approaching us in the middle of the embankment and the East Prussian land, where the Fourth Army came to its sunset. Smoke from burning houses, vehicles and tanks rose about 100 meters in height. Where are the people going? Machine gun rumble, isolated rifle shot are heard. These are those who are still able to defend themselves. The last daredevils who are trying to hold back the onslaught of the enemy, despite his significant superiority. In a territory cut off from 65 to 75 km from the German Eastern Front. It stretched out somewhere in the Danzig area. Now I have already avoided the immediate danger in the combat area, but how could the Russians not approach Pillau? If very little time is now left before the complete liquidation of the army, then why were these heavy and deadly battles needed? Leaving behind the walls of the knight's castle illuminated by flares. One of the last to leave the coast of Friedrichshafen was Captain Richard von Weizsäcker, who 4 decades later became the President of the Federal Republic of Germany.